Hi, this is Rex with your next edition of Petong Points Podcast, coming to you from the beautiful studios of universalexports.co. Last time we had a lot to catch up on results of games all over the place. This time more about the random acts of and about Petong generally. We'll search for Fanny, discuss those forbidden objects and where not to put them, have a book review or two, see why Sydney isn't really the party place it thinks it is, do drugs and other things, read a report from across the ditch, as well as uncover the next of the 7 deadly sins. Does this apply to you? And more. So get set and let the game begin. The report last episode on Supernova, the Australian National Championships, prompted a comment from David Shaw, chair of the PFA Umpires Commission, and I quote, "Read the National Championships from an umpire's perspective. May I report two of many other worthy points. Umpiring team. What do you get when one international umpire, one confederation umpire, 2 national umpires and 2 state umpires, one part-time, work together as a team with consistent rulings, reviews and vigilance? Answer: minimal fuss, player respect for the rules and very contented umpires. And 2, I'd like 10 cents for every time we had to gently remind participants to mark the jack. As the rules clearly state, when you throw it, when you place it, when it gets moved, all together now, mark the jack. And there are right and wrong ways to mark the jack, just saying." End quote. Thank you, David. It may be prudent to say here that these rules and others are not only available from the PFA website, but going back to the Petong Points podcast episode 1, you can hear David explaining many of those rules and also detailing how and why the jack should be marked. It was in 2007 the World Anti-Doping Agency, which fights against drugs in sport, finally responded to the calls from French players of Petong to lift its draconian ban on alcohol for professional players. The president of the World Bulls Federation, Romolo Rizzoli, ridiculed the inclusion of alcohol on the list of banned substances for Petong, complaining to Liberation newspaper, "You can drive a car after drinking 2 glasses of wine, but you can't play Bulls." According to Der Spiegel, Bulls players still have a long list of substances they are barred from taking, including cocaine, steroids, hashish and growth hormones. 2 glasses of wine and then drive? This podcast is not endorsing that statement, but we are pleased that the ban was lifted. Forbidden objects. When you're flying, it is important to remember that you cannot take bulls on board with you in the carry-on luggage. When you fly, put your bulls in your checked luggage. The French have long classified bulls as dangerous objects. In the USA, after 9/11 attacks, the Federal Transportation Safety Authority took the same position. When you travel by air, you may not bring your bulls on board in your carry-on luggage. Bulls are forbidden objects. Now we ask the question, who is Fanny and where did she come from? Don't be fooled. Kissing Fanny is no reward, although that might depend on the Fanny. Kissing Fanny is a punishment for losing a game without scoring a single point. It would appear that this tradition started in France's Savoy region, far from the sunny south. The first Fanny was a waitress at the Café of de Grandlomp, just after World War I. As legend would have it, she was so kind-hearted that she would allow customers who had lost a game of boules without scoring a single point to kiss her on the cheek. This went on until one day the village mayor lost a game and came to collect his prize. No one knows whether Fanny had a grudge against him and wanted to humiliate him, but we do know that she stepped up onto the chair, lifted a skirt and offered him a different pair of cheeks. The mayor was up to the challenge though, and less than a second later 2 loud kisses resounded through the cafe. This was the beginning of the long-standing tradition. The problem with this charming ritual is that players don't always have a fanny to hand. That is, a fanny who is willing to bare her backside in public. This is why everywhere bulls are played, a fake fanny is proudly displayed. The unhappy losers are obliged to kiss, in public, the generous cheeks of a fanny, whether in a painting or made of pottery or as a sculpture. Thus, the consolation prize has become the ultimate humiliation for bulls players everywhere. The ceremonial humiliation often involves kneeling for the kiss and includes the ringing of a bell. And that is why wherever bulls are played in France, a painting or a poster or a sculpture of stone or pottery is proudly displayed, ready to be kissed, in public by the unlucky losers. And here's another technical fanny. That is, to win by scoring 13 consecutive points. For example, if a team had 12 points, the opposition could then score all 13 points and win the game with a technical fanny. So, when play has been cancelled for whatever reason, it creates an opportunity to sit back, relax and read. So how about books on pétanque? Try this one. Uncorked, my year in Provence studying pétanque, discovering Chagall, drinking pastis and mangling French by Paul Shaw. Do you enjoy laughing while rekindling fond travelling memories? You're going to love Uncorked because Paul Shaw's wry wit and big heart will spark flashbacks of your own travel adventures. Shaw's storytelling humorously celebrates the uncorking of many of France's most cherished traditions. Learning to play boules under the clandestine cover of darkness, cheese plate etiquette, drinking before noon, and dodging exhaled cigarette smoke. Paul also uncovers personal awakenings about the value of following paths less travelled and slowing down to smell the roses, all while his self-deprecating humour and sincere respect for the value of traditions enable him to make friends and gain acceptance within a quirky foreign culture. And, triggered by living for a year in the village of the great artist Marc Chagall, Shaw also reflects on the challenges that all newcomers face in their adopted lands. Treat yourself today to some laughter and fond reminiscing. Praise for Uncorked by others? Then this is by Grant Lawrence, CBC broadcaster and author of Adventures in Solitude. Like a wry cross between Bill Bryson and Dave Bedini, Paul Shaw's funny, self-deprecating and wholesome recounting of a year spent in Provence is one part travelogue, one part self-help guide and one part memoir. Uncorked, just like good French wine, light, delicious and full of flavour. Other books you may like to search for: Bulls Down Under by Egon Pozniak and Pétanque, the greatest game you've never heard of, Beyond Bocce, the elegant and intelligent French game of boules by B.W. Putman. I might put a review of these in future podcasts. Though this following article isn't so positive on pétanque, I thought it was worth including anyway, and maybe we can learn something positive from it. Bulls Brawl. Efforts to turn pétanque into an Olympic sport have hit trouble after an unseemly brawl among Belgian and French players at the annual World Pétanque Championships in Marseille. Ambulance crews treated the wounded after a three-man local team assaulted the Belgian trio that had just trounced them 13-1 at the Mondial de Marseille, which is being contested by 2,100 teams. According to the Belgians and witnesses, the Marseille players said that they had been the winners when they reported it to the scoring desk after the game on Sunday. Alcohol may have affected their judgment, said one of the Belgians, when the Belgians discovered the alleged cheating and the Marseillaise men's turned on them, with supporters of both sides joining in the melee. Needless to say, Olympic authorities were not impressed. By coincidence, that transition piece of music is titled Hear the Noise, most appropriate for this item. Sydney Bar banned from playing boules because it was annoying neighbours. This was by Stuart Perry and published in May 2019. Sydney is slowly being strangled by local and state governments wanting to get rid of all the fun. Lockout laws caused irreparable damage to the city's nightlife, leading to legendary pubs and clubs shutting down. People have been bombarded with news of their favourite establishment closing due to declining sales and tougher regulation. But it seems like we've found the cherry to place on top of the cake of ridiculousness. A Sydney pub that has a petanque game out the back has been forced to put the bulls away because of fed-up neighbours. This angry resident, or residents, were reportedly sick of hearing the metal balls clinking every now and then and made an application to the City of Sydney to get the game scrapped. The owners of the Black Wine Bottle introduced the same game because they grew up playing it in France. Owners Marc Tricot posted a message onto the bar's Facebook page adding, "Today we are sad to say in another grand civil move, the City of Sydney has called us to stop the petanque from happening at the back of the Black Bottle, effective immediately." Apparently, the metal balls clanking were disturbing the neighbours in an already ghastly neighbourhood. For thousands of years, neighbourhoods got together to play a friendly game, kids and adults alike, and we tried to bring a little bit of home with us in a struggling neighbourhood. Once again, we are caught short by a city who will not allow, well, anything really. A very sad day at Black Bottle and another very sad day for Sydney. If you've ever played the game before, you'll know that the bulls don't emit that much noise when they collide with each other. Surely not enough to warrant an emotion that's even close to annoyance. City of Sydney Councillor Jess Scully added, "It was said to be irritating. The city is investigating that complaint. We want to have activity like restaurants, bars, performance, but sometimes people have expectations of serenity that maybe don't match their urban context. Give us our petanque." The 7 Deadly Sins. Are you guilty? From an article by Ray Ager from the Anglia Petanque Association. We've already covered the first 2 of the 7 Deadly Sins, which were 1, not playing as a team, and 2, not checking the head, not thinking tactically. Now for the third. Not reading the terrain. The sinner plays without checking the terrain, complains about stones and bad bounces, and hits blocking bulls. The winner walks to the jack, examining the terrain, checking for slopes and dips, hard or stony areas, chooses the correct landing spot, takes note of any blocking bulls, then wins the point. Winners get far less bad bounces than those who don't check the terrain. If there is a slope on the terrain, which can either be up or down and or across the terrain, you have to have observed that this is the case and play according to the slope. Playing the slope can involve rolling or half lobbing, taking the slope into account. Don't just play straight to the jack and wonder why your bull goes 3 metres off to the side. High lob to land near the jack, thus minimising the distance the bull rolls and is affected by the slope. Spinning the bull to counteract the slope. Sometimes a slope can make it very difficult to get a bull near the jack, in which case you need to consider where is the best place to position your bull, which will make it difficult to beat. For example, supposing the terrain is fairly flat but slopes down about 2 metres in front of the jack. If you roll down the slope, your bull won't stop. You need to play 2 metres in front of the jack, stopping just before the slope, hoping that any bull that beats your bull will simply continue rolling. Remember, petanque is meant to be played on an irregular, uneven surface. See sin number 6 coming up in a future episode. Bad bounce or bad shot? The holy sin. This is similarly related to type of terrain and reading the terrain. Hopefully by now you know that choosing the correct landing spot is one of the key skills in pointing well. Practicing landing on the chosen spot is an important exercise to develop the skill and achieve consistency. However, a lot of players often play one or more bulls in quick succession and wonder why they get so many bad bounces. The reason is often that they land their bulls in the hole they've just made with their first bull. Remember, the rules allow you to fill in any hole made by the last bull played. Often it will be an advantage to do so. This both helps you avoid landing in a hole that's going to deflect your bulls and also to legally prepare a landing spot for your next bull. National Club Championships New Zealand. As this report is now in the public domain, and I'm sure any promotion is a good thing, I'll go ahead with it, although I'm yet to receive a reply from Petanque New Zealand about doing so. 18 teams from 11 clubs took part in the National Club Championship at the Taronga Petanque Club at Mount Manganui over Anzac weekend. After a 4-year absence, Panmure Pioneers once again entered the club champs. On Saturday, it looked like they were making up for lost time as they finished the day undefeated with 10 wins. Defending champions, Herne Bay, with 8 wins, were 6 points behind, and host club Taronga were third on 7 wins. On Saturday, everything seemed easy for Panmure, but on Sunday, everything seemed more difficult, and their lead gradually ebbed away as they could only manage 3 wins to finish in 5th place. The final round on Sunday featured Herne Bay versus Taronga and Wanganui East versus Bayview. Herne Bay had the slight advantage as they had a 3-point lead over Taronga and Wanganui. Bayview couldn't win the title, but they could gain a podium spot. Herne Bay and Taronga split their match 1-1, which moved Herne Bay to at least a share of first place. Wanganui could join them if they won both their games, and then it would be up to the calculators to determine the final positions. Unfortunately for Wanganui, they lost both games to allow Bayview to leapfrog into second place and relegate Wanganui to 4th, 1 spot below the medals. So after the COVID-19 hiatus, Herne Bay retained the title as top club, with Bayview again in 2nd place. 3rd place was taken by Taronga. The senior title was won by Hibiscus Coast on a tiebreak from Christchurch. Well, that's it. Fanny's Forbidden Objects, Sins and Millies. Thank you for being here. Remember, if you've had anything you would like included about your club, your experiences, your petanque, contact me at audiorexy@gmail.com. In the meantime, subscribe to Petanque Points Podcast on your favourite podcast app or provider. See you on the piece. Rex out.
You're a good man, Rex.